It's been said that time heals all wounds, but some wounds run much deeper than others. My name is Michael Collier, and in the aftermath of his cancer diagnosis, I went to visit my grandfather, Butch Holmes. Butch has been many things: a family man, a photographer, a truck driver, and, once upon a time, a Navy SEAL, a member of the U.S. Navy's elite special forces. He served during some of the most traumatic chapters of the Vietnam War towards the end of the 60s. Since moving to Colorado, the house he's lived in has changed. There are tanks of oxygen in his office and in the living room. There are medication bottles in the kitchen, and pamphlets for Hodgkin's lymphoma plaster the refrigerator door. Today, 73-year-old Butch Holmes is fighting a life-threatening disease. But things didn't always used to be that way. Born in 1948, Butch grew up in Dublin, Georgia, where he lived a life straight out of American graffiti. It was during this time he met Diane Scott, the woman who would later become his wife.
I've known your grandmother since we were about 5 or 6 years old, and we didn't date, we didn't talk to each other much. We didn't travel in the same circles. We was at the local hangout for young people. It was called the Castle, and I was driving a 1963 ragtop, and it broke down, and your grandmother was riding her Volkswagen through the parking lot. We used to ride a circuit. It was 3-4 miles long. We used to go from the Tasty Freeze in North Dublin to the bowling alley in East Dublin, and we used to call that we'll roll the bowl and breeze the freeze. Well, anyway, my car was broke down, it wouldn't go. She come around and picked me up, and we've been riding around ever since, almost 51 years.
Even at its best, Vietnam is no tourist attraction. Jim and his buddies, like all GIs, make their own fun, and that's the best kind. Specialist 6, James Daly, your man in Vietnam. In today's Action Army, see your Army recruiter.
The new communist campaign in Vietnam continues. Just after midnight their time, a band of Viet Cong raiders blew up a power installation and attacked 2 police stations in Saigon. Other small bands still roam the city. The Viet Cong are reported to be in complete control of a militant Buddhist headquarters less than a mile from the center of town. And there are reports that the National Liberation Front has formed a revolutionary council to run Saigon.
Some questions never have good answers. What I do know about my grandfather is that he served 3 tours in Vietnam as a Navy SEAL between 1965 and 1969. Butch Holmes made it out of the war with his body apparently intact. The chemical defoliant known as Agent Orange poisoned land, American GIs, and North Vietnamese, military and civilians alike, for over 11,000 square miles across North Vietnam. Today, it is estimated that there are between 50,000 and 90,000 veterans who may have been impacted by Agent Orange during their time deployed. In addition to Hodgkin's lymphoma, the Veterans Association has listed 16 other conditions that might develop as a result of exposure to the defoliant. In Vietnam, Agent Orange still haunts the soil and the water that people drink alongside the animals that they eat. Starting around 1988, there would be far more awareness about the impacts caused by Agent Orange in the press. Awareness that would not come around until 4 years after Butch received his first cancer diagnosis.
Started at the beginning. In 1984, I was diagnosed with what they said would probably be fatal colon cancer. I was operated on, I was cured, and I lived 37 years, and the cancer in the colon came back. I've had a very difficult operation to rid myself of my colon totally. I have no colon. And in addition to the colon cancer, they found Hodgkin's lymphoma. I'm undergoing chemotherapy at this time for the colon cancer. After 12 doses of chemo, they'll start working on the Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Everything about his time as a soldier I've learned only from my family. Butch's daughter and my mother, Carol Holmes Collier, recalls the day he was diagnosed.
The first time that I remember my father having cancer, I was in the 7th grade. My dad had been in the Navy, and while he was in the Navy, he was a Navy SEAL, and he swam through tributaries of Agent Orange, and so that would have been in the early 80s. I'd gotten this shiny new bicycle for my birthday, and so he was taking it out on a ride just to go and see how it was, and just, we were just like, yay, you got a great new Christmas present. And it was going into my birthday because I'm right after Christmas, and he had a lot of pain afterwards, and so he went to the VA, and they were like, oh, you're fine, you just have a hemorrhoid, you're fine. And so he went on about his life for a few more months, and he kept having continued pain, and the VA kept telling him, you're fine, you have a hemorrhoid, you're just making this stuff up, there's nothing wrong with you. And so they kept telling him this for an additional 6 months, and so by the time they finally gave him exploratory treatment, they discovered that he had a tumor in his colon that was larger than a grapefruit.
Butch's wife Diane also recalls that day.
Right, we found out on a Wednesday afternoon, oh, maybe it was Friday afternoon, because the doctor says, go get your affairs in order. Take care of your banking, your Social Security applications, and we'll do surgery on Monday morning. Papa went home and drank a 5th of whiskey, and he was still stone cold sober. That was dramatic news. They said, 50% you'll live 2 years, 0 that you live longer than that. At that time, when he was so sick, I realized that I could not support our family on a GS5 salary. We had 2 young children, and I needed to figure out how to do that. So I started back to finish my bachelor's degree. I went probably 3 or 4 semesters while I was still working, but then Papa says, I figured out a way, we can do this. You stop working and go to school full-time and finish up. And I finished my bachelor's in 1986, August.
In Diane Holmes' study, there is a picture of Butch with a pin button that says, I survived damn near everything. In some ways, it's true. He has. He survived war, sickness, and just about everything in between. But there's still a big fight ahead of him.
If you give in to your diseases, it'll kill you. If you quit being active, you die. Yeah, I played sports. I played golf. I played basketball. I played volleyball. Yeah, I'm still active. I won't say I don't get the occasional terribly bad headaches. I have really bad chills immediately after the chemo. That lasts 4 or 5 days. And I'll have 2 or 3 or 4 good days. Then it's time to start chemo all over again. You've got to fight when you are seriously ill and you have a life. You have to do as much of that life as you possibly can, or the disease will kill you. If you have a fighting attitude, you'll do a lot better.
I love my grandfather. I've known him for all my life, and I've always been thankful to have him in my life. I know he won't be around forever, but I also realize that he'll keep fighting to stay with us for as long as he can.